Hi guys, welcome. I read 122 books this year and I've tier ranked every single one of them. Some of the books I read this year were life-changing and super memorable, but most of them, to be honest, were not. Okay, let's start ranking. So I have my categories set up. I've watched several of these tier ranking videos because I think they're really fun, but everyone is so creative with their category names. They're using like niche pop culture references and Taylor Swift lyrics. I, in fact, did animals, which just made sense in my head. I'll explain. But at the very bottom of my list, I have the Mosquito tier. These are the books that honestly were just an annoyance to me this year. I live in the South, so mosquitoes are like the bane of my existence. So these are the books that really frustrated me this year. I never want to see them again. I just want them to be gone. One tier up, I have my blobfish tier. So these are the books that to me were just kind of blah this year. Like every once in a while, I'll remember they exist and I'm like, oh, that's mildly unfortunate. But they really don't affect me much. They're just kind of there. They're like living deep in the ocean, doing their thing, but I didn't enjoy them. I also just don't think about them or remember anything that happened. One tier up from that, I have my goldfish tier. So these are the books that I really liked when I read them, but I don't remember anything about them because I have the memory of a goldfish. So they just didn't stick with me this year. I think this one is probably going to be the tier that's the most filled up with books because there were so many like KU romances, just romances in general that I read this year that I really liked at the time but just didn't stick with me. Next I have my elephant tier. So these are the books that I really liked, and elephants have really good memories, so I remember these books and I still like them. I just didn't form like a super strong emotional connection with them. Above that I have my wolf tier. These are the books that I really loved this year and they did stick with me. Wolves mate for life, so these are the books that I think about all the time and I really loved. I'm gonna have probably 4 stars, 4.5 stars, and 5-star books in here because I did really love these, but I had to have a tier for like my god tier books, and for me that's gonna be my dragon tier. Dragons also mate for life, and these are the books that like are my favorite books of all time. They changed my life or my reading trajectory in some way. They're books that I will take no criticism on. I love them with my entire heart. I would burn the world down for them. So these are my dragon tier books. It's also the only fantastical animal I have on my tier list for a reason. Okay, let's start ranking. But this program uploaded all of my 122 books like out of order. We're just gonna kind of go with the order that it gave me. Okay, starting with After the Storm by Laura Pavlov. So earlier I said that I read a ton of KU books and indie romance books, interconnected standalone series this year. In February, I very much went through a Laura Pavlov phase. I read through like all of her series. This is one of those books, but honestly, every single one of them is probably going to be under Goldfish. And I don't really remember anything specific about all of them. So I'm looking for all the books in these series. But I read her Cottonwood Cove series and her Honey Mountain series. So Into the Tide, this one right here, is the first book in the Cottonwood Cove series. And actually, I think I'm gonna move that one up to Elephant because I do remember that one. That was the first Laura Pavlov book that I read and I did really enjoy it. So obviously that one is kind of what made me read the rest of the series. So that one's gonna go into Elephant. I do remember it and I did really like it, but it didn't like stick with me emotionally. And then I have one book that might also be in that tier, but I'm going to find the rest and put those in Goldfish. I paused so you didn't have to see me searching for all of these books. But like I said, they all sort of blur in my mind, especially because I read them so close together. But they are cute and comforting and fun. And obviously I wouldn't have kept reading the entire series if I didn't like it. And then I have one more from Laura Pavlov, Only Mine, which is the last book in the second series, the Honey Mountain series. And that one I really liked because it follows Dylan, who is a character that had a ton of personality, and I was kind of anticipating her romance the whole time. And I think that this one was really worth it. So I'm going to put that one in Elephant tier as well. Next we have The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy, which is the start of like her more recent series. I read the Off-Campus series and then I think it's called the Briar U series, and I really enjoyed those. But to be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of the Graham effect. I also don't remember anything about it. I know it's like a hockey romance, and like she's the daughter of Garrett Graham, one of the main characters from the Off Campus series, and she also plays hockey. But that one's gonna go under Blobfish because I think it was a bit of a letdown, and I didn't feel the need to continue that series after this. Then we have another KU romance series. I didn't read the whole series. I think this is the second book in the series, but it's called The Summer I Saved You by Elizabeth O'Rourke. These are kind of like broody summer romances is how I would describe them. Lots of trauma, and I wasn't a big fan. But that one I think is also going to go under Blobfish. The Road of Bones by Demi Winters is a Viking romance fantasy series. There are 2 books out currently, and honestly, the first book is probably going to go under Elephant. I really enjoyed it, but the second book was so much better. Let me see if I can find that one. Yeah, Kingdom of Claw is the second book. This one, we're learning a lot more about the world, and Demi Winters really takes her time building the world and building her characters. So you're starting from like the very, very, very beginning of your main character's journey, and you're gonna grow so much with the main character Scylla, and some more characters are introduced in the second book that I think makes the pacing a lot better. So Kingdom of Claw is wolf tier for me. I really, really, really loved it, and I'm very excited to see where the rest of the series goes. I don't feel like I can put it in dragon tier yet because, again, I haven't read the rest of the series, so things could change. Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood is, I think, her like Spotify audiobook only release. I liked it, but it was probably my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book that I've read. I don't really remember much about it, so I'm going to probably put that one in Goldfish. I know it was like a video game design rivals to lovers situation. Only Santa's in the Building. This was part of a holiday collection of novellas that was released, all written by different popular authors this year. But to be honest, they're probably going to go under Goldfish, most of them. They were cute, but there was nothing like super special about them. They were kind of forgettable, except for maybe 2. Yeah, so this Merry Ever After, the Tessa Bailey one, is going to go under Mosquito for me, unfortunately. This one was just like really bad. Merriment and Mayhem is probably also going to be a Goldfish. All By My Elf was also kind of just boring and forgettable. That's also going to go under Goldfish. But then we have Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood, which really surprised me. This one is like 75 pages, and I just don't know how she was able to do it. This is honestly going to go under wolf tier. I think it's really, really hard to make a 75-page winter novella that feels like it's got character development and plot and tension. What I Should Have Said by Max Monroe. This one is probably going to go under Blobfish for me. This one is completely my fault. So I looked at this cover and I thought it was just a fun, summery, kind of beachy read, and I did not read the description. But if I were to have read the description, I would realize that this is just like a very traumatic story. There is romance, but I don't know if it necessarily worked with all of the like trauma going on in this book, but it's definitely not a fun summery romance. But I can't quite put it in Mosquito for books that I just like really, really disliked because it was my fault for not reading the description. But yeah, it's going in Blobfish because 1, it's not what I expected, and 2, I don't know that it really handled the subject matter alongside the romance super successfully. Set the Record Straight by Hannah Bonham Young. This one was a big surprise for me this year. I was having kind of a string of bad luck with holiday romances, and this one is a sapphic holiday romance. It's friends to lovers, and it's just a really nice, cozy Christmas romance with not a ton of drama, and I really enjoyed it. So that's gonna go in wolf tier for me. Definitely one of my favorite Christmas romances I read this year, and I read a lot. Saint by Sierra Simone. I think I have to start with Priest, which is the first book in this series. I think it's called the Priest series. If you haven't heard of the series, it's kind of like an erotic forbidden romance series with lots and lots of religious trauma. The first book is Priest, and I read this one and I really, really did not like it. It's just straight up insta love. This one's between a priest and a woman who comes in for confessional. I think this one's gonna go in blobfish for me. I thought this one was really blah and I didn't understand what the hype was for this series. But then I read the second book, Sinner, for some reason. This one is between a nun in training, I forgot what it was called, and this guy who calls himself a sinner because he's just like such a bad guy. Really, he just kind of like sleeps around a lot. This one was a lot better. It wasn't my favorite, so I'm going to put it in elephant. I liked it, didn't love it. Definitely better than Priest though. And then Saint, I was really, really surprised to find this one made it into my top romances of the year list. This one was the least spicy out of all three of them, and I think that just left a lot more room for all of the character development and the tension. And I thought with the really heavy subject matter regarding depression and sexual identity, sexuality, religious trauma, and all of that, I think this one is the one that did it the most successfully in my opinion. It's also a male-male second chance romance between a monk and his ex-boyfriend who is a journalist now. And I think this was the best story of all of them and the best characters of all of them. Really, really loved this one, surprisingly. So the series really went like this for me. Faking Christmas by Cindy Steele. I read like 3 fake dating Christmas romances back to back, and this one I completely forgot. So we're gonna put this one in Goldfish because I think I liked it when I was reading it, but I could not tell you a single thing about it now, which is bad because it was like a month ago. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I really, really, really enjoyed Bride this year, but I think there were some other Ali Hazelwood releases that were better for me this year. However, I did really love the paranormal aspect, and I do still think about it. So I think I'm gonna put this one in Elephant. I really, really liked it, and I do remember parts of it, but I didn't super emotionally connect to it as much as I did some other books. The Good Part by Sophie Cousins. This is one of those like 13 going on 30 inspired romances where she goes forward in time and she's trying to like skip to the good part of her life, and then of course she realizes that there's no good part of life. There are challenges in every phase of life and it's all the good part. But honestly, there's nothing that super stands out about this one, and I don't think I really enjoyed it when I was reading it either. Sophie Cousins just really put her heroine through the ringer in this, and it was not fun to read about, and I wasn't super convinced with the romance either. It felt a little bit weird, so I think I'm putting that one in Blobfish. Ick Factor by Morgan Elizabeth. I told you guys there was gonna be a ton of KU romance that was kind of forgettable for me this year. This is another one because I remember having good feelings when I finished it. I couldn't tell you what it's about. Snowden by Catherine Walsh. This one I remember really, really liking. It was one of those fake dating romances that I read back to back, and this one I remember the most out of all of them. The banter was really, really good, and I had read the first book in the series, I think called Holiday Romance, last year, and I didn't really love that one. I thought the characters were kind of flat, but this one I really, really liked. I'm gonna put this one in Elephant, I think, because it was still just like a fake dating Christmas romance that I don't know stacks up against some of the other romances I read this year that weren't holiday romances. But of the holiday romances I read this year, this one definitely is a standout. Drop Cover and Hold On. This is part of another collection of novellas for Valentine's Day. And again, I don't remember anything about these. I remember one of them because there was like a pen pal aspect, and I love an epistolary romance, but the rest of them don't remember anything about. But I remember enjoying them when I was reading them. They're cute for what they are and if you're trying to hit a reading goal, but they're definitely not super memorable. Okay, yeah, so the Christina Lauren one I think is the one with the epistolary aspect. I'm gonna put that one tier up in Elephant. The rest I don't remember. The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. This one I think I'm going to put in Blobfish. This one I read right after Bride, and it's kind of the same thing with that sort of paranormal wolfy romance thing, but Bride did it so much better. This one just really fell flat for me. The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This one is book 1 in a YA fantasy romance series, and I only read book 1. I enjoyed it when I was reading it, but looking back, it was a little boring. We kind of just stay in the prison the whole time. and it's definitely setting up for the rest of the series, but I don't know if this first book super hooked me because I never really felt inclined to pick up the rest of the series, at least not right now. So I think this one is going to go into, let's say, Goldfish, because I do remember liking it and I bought the second book because I was intrigued at the time. I just haven't felt the need to continue yet. Can I tell you something? This one was a big surprise for me. I picked it up on audio and it was very similar to Lights Out by Navessa Allen. This one's like a Christmas version though, where it follows a spicy audio narrator and his best friend's little sister who ends up being a secret fan. And I really enjoyed this one. I think I'm going to probably put this one in Elephant. Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison. This is part of the Love Light Farms series. I think it's either like the spring or summer book. Each of them represent like a different season. This one, I think I'm probably going to put in, let's say, Goldfish, because I honestly don't remember much about this one in particular except the fact that she's a baker and he likes her baked goods, I guess. But Business Casual over here, I really, really liked. This is a reverse Grumpy Sunshine. She's a tattoo artist and he's kind of like that golden retriever character who's a huge people pleaser, and they both kind of like learn to accept each other and then also in turn themselves. And this one was probably my favorite in the series so far. So this one's gonna go under Elephant. Single and Ready to Jingle. This one unfortunately is probably going to go under my Mosquito tier. This one, I just really, really did not like the hero. He was super judgmental and just awful. Bridesmaid for Hire by Megan Quinn. This is one of those fake dating in paradise romances, but there's another one that's a very similar plot that I read this year by Christina Lauren that I think was a lot better. So I think this one I'm probably going to put under Goldfish. Yeah, this one was cute and summery and fun, but I don't remember much about it. Whereas the Christina Lauren one, The Paradise Problem, I think was 5 stars for me at the time. I did really, really enjoy this one, and I think the story was just a little bit more fleshed out and the characters were a little bit more fleshed out. It's like a marriage of convenience in paradise with like rich family problems, and I think this one was just a little bit more well done. So I'm gonna put that one in Elephant because it wasn't like one of my top romances this year, but I did really like it. Savor It by Tara DeWitt was one of my favorite romances this year. This is between a burnt out chef from New York and this very eclectic people-pleasing neighbor that he moves next door to with his niece. This was my first Tara DeWitt book. I thought the writing was fantastic. I want to read like every single book in her backlist now, but this one really worked for me. I'm putting this one in Wolf tier because I really, really, really loved it and I think about it still. A great summer romance too. Funny Story by Emily Henry. This one is hard for me because I really loved it when I read it, but when I looked back on the year, it didn't really make any of my top romance of the year books. I think it just kind of paled in comparison to a couple of her other books for me, but I did still really enjoy it, and I liked that Miles was kind of an unconventional hero, so I think I'm going to put this one in Elephant actually. A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. This one was sort of a little bit of a forgettable kind of watered down romantasy book for me. It felt a little bit tropey and nothing about it really felt super like well fleshed out or developed in my opinion, and I didn't feel the need to continue the series, so I think I'm going to put this one in Blobfish, unfortunately. Close Knit by Kelson Denise Stone is another KU romance that I think I'm going to put under Goldfish because I don't remember too much about it except for the fact that he is like a famous soccer player and she knits a lot. Tangled in Tinsel by Trelina Pucci. This is my first Why Choose romance, and I just don't think Why Choose is for me, unfortunately. It's like a very Christmas-themed Why Choose romance where she gets snowed in with like 5 super hot guys. Honestly, a little overstimulating for me. I just don't think it's for me. So I think I'm going to put it in Blobfish because it's not necessarily that it like super bothered me and like I hated anything about it. I think it's just not for me. Shucked by Kate Canterbury. I really liked when I read it. It's another one of those kind of summery rivals to lovers romances. She owns like a vegan restaurant that she opened next door to this guy's like clam restaurant. But that's really all I remember. Nothing like super memorable or different about this, but it is a cute, fun, summery romance. So it's gonna go in Goldfish. On the Same Page by Haley Cass, I really, really loved. This is a sapphic best friends to lovers romance, and it is done so well. The tension is really fantastic. I love their relationship, and there were lots of like flashback scenes as well, which I think really helped build their relationship, because I hate when it's like a best friends to lovers romance and you don't get to see their like friendship develop. So I think this one's gonna go in wolf territory for me, because I don't know if it necessarily like changed the trajectory of my reading, but I did really, really, really love this one. Probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite sapphic romance I read this year. Oh, I missed Rosie and the Dreamboat. This one's another one of those kind of forgettable Valentine's Day romance novellas, so that's going in Goldfish, because I forgot about it twice. Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I think this might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but I liked Wild Love better this year. I know everyone really liked the single dad main character from Wild Eyes, but I really loved the like found family element of Wild Love and the like second chance friends to lovers aspect of this one. So I think I'm gonna put Wild Love under wolf tier, and Wild Eyes was really cute, but I can't say that I loved it. I'm gonna put that one under elephant, I think. Elsie Silver books always hit though. Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. I think I'm gonna have to start with Throne of Glass though. So I read Throne of Glass actually about 2 years ago, and I wasn't super hooked, and the series is like 10 books and such a commitment that I just didn't really feel like continuing on. So I think I'm gonna put this one in Goldfish. I liked it, but I forgot everything about it, and then I reread it this year. I still liked it, but honestly probably wouldn't have continued the series unless my friends and like everyone on the planet weren't like, this series gets so good, I promise. So then I read Crown of Midnight. I also didn't like Crown of Midnight that much. It was a little better because I really enjoyed the last like 100 pages or so, as Sarah J Maas books tend to do. So I think that one's gonna go under elephant. I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite for sure. Heir of Fire though is when things really got good for me. I started feeling super invested in the series with Heir of Fire. I think the pacing was just better, which is, I heard, kind of an unpopular opinion. People don't like all the jumping around in this one. I really liked that. I think it kind of kept me hooked, and this is like where I was really like, okay, I'm invested. I'm really liking Throne of Glass, so I'm putting that in wolf tier. It's not gonna go under dragon tier because I obviously haven't read the rest of the series yet. I'm on Queen of Shadows right now, and I did go back and read Assassin's Blade before Queen of Shadows, so I feel like I have to read the rest of the series. Powerful by Lauren Roberts. I do think I need to do Powerless first, so that one's right here. Powerless, I really liked. I thought the story was really good and engaging. I did hear there's some controversy with maybe stealing some material from other authors. I haven't read Red Queen, so I couldn't tell you. But I'm gonna put that one in elephant because I did really enjoy it when I read it. Then I read Powerful, which is the novella. It's Misha's story, a character from Powerless, and it happens during the same time as Powerless. I do think I'm going to probably put this one in Goldfish, unfortunately, because the story didn't really connect with the next book at all, which I was a little bit disappointed in. And I don't know that anything really super stood out for me in Powerful. I did like Misha's character, but I do feel like I could have like skipped it and been fine. Then Reckless, unfortunately, I was not a fan of. I think this one was just a little bit of a letdown. It felt really repetitive and like a filler book. So that one's gonna go in Blobfish. I have hope for the next book in the series, but Reckless just sort of felt like it could have been cut in half or added to the events of the next book because it really was just like the same thing over and over. Coach by Devney Perry, I think is gonna go in Blobfish for me. I don't really remember it. I know it's like a second chance romance between like the coach of this like university football team and his ex-best friend who now works in the athletics department, and they sort of had something going on back in college. I don't remember anything that happens in this book, but I do remember being really frustrated with the ending. Iron Flame. I don't remember anything about Iron Flame, and the third book comes out literally tomorrow, so I probably need to go refresh myself so I can like keep up. But I remembered liking it when I read it. I don't think I had any like crazy problems with it. I think I just sort of forgot everything that happened. So Goldfish it is. Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider, however, was one of my favorite fantasy romances this year. It is book 1 in a series, and I don't know what's going to happen in book 2, so I don't think I could put it in like dragon tier or anything, but it's going to go in wolf tier because I think any book that has the ability to surprise me that much deserves a good ranking. I also just really enjoyed the world and the story in this one. I think it was really interesting. I loved the whole kingdom built around a grove of trees out in the water, and the fact that our main character has never stepped foot on land. I thought it was really interesting and a good time, and just a solid romantasy book. Lights Out by Navessa Allen. This one was so much fun. I listened to the audiobook on this one and it was fantastic. It made me fall in love with Jacob Morgan's narration, and I think he just embodies the main character in this book so well. I think I'm gonna go with wolf tier because I just had so much fun with this one. If you don't know the plot of that one, it's a stalker romance with a TikTok famous masked man and his like biggest fan, and it's really funny for a dark romance. If you're new to dark romance, I think you'd really like this one because it doesn't feel like super dark or disturbing. Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder, I had a really good time with. I was looking for a cowboy romance to read during summer, and this one just like really hit the spot for me. It's a girl who is running away from something traumatic in her life, and she goes to stay on this bourbon distillery farm and meets one of the brothers who own the farm, and I just thought it was really cute. I really liked it. I think I'm going to put this one in elephant because I really did enjoy it. Was it my favorite romance ever? No, but it was a good time and a good summery cowboy romance. Storm of Secrets and Sorrows. This is book 2 in the Legacy series. The first one is this one over here, Reign of Shadows and Endings. I don't yet know how I feel about this series. People rave about this series. Everyone loves it. I think the writing is really, really good and the characters are really, really good. This is like a dark fantasy romance series where the Fae are sort of enslaved to the Legacy, who are descendants of the gods, and they use the Fae to kind of strengthen their powers. And our main character becomes one of the enslaved sources, they call him, to the Legacy. And it's a very, very toxic romance. It's really infuriating. There's a lot of trauma, and like I'm enjoying it, but I can't say it's necessarily like my favorite thing ever. I think I need to kind of wait and see where it's going to really have a good opinion on the series. So I think I'm going to put these in elephant for now. There is a third book out that I haven't read yet because I heard you need to go back and read the Lady of Darkness series, which is her previous series, before reading that third book. So I may move this one up a tier, but I do feel like I just sort of like need to see where it's going. Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. I loved this book so much. This is a broody rivals to lovers musical prodigy romance, and I just think that the writing was really cool in this one. I remember thinking that like the creative process was really well written, and the like musical compositions are like musical in themselves and kind of entwine themselves in the romance, and I thought it was really beautiful. I really, really loved it. I think that one's gonna go in wolf tier for me. Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist. This is another sapphic romance. This one's like very fall, small town romance. There's like a ghost involved. It's like the ghost of one of our main characters' ex-girlfriend, and it's really cute. I do think I'm gonna put it in Goldfish because I remember really, really liking it, but I don't think it's one that like really stuck with me. Crossroads by Daphne Perry is unfortunately another Goldfish romance for me. It was a second chance romance, and you're getting some flashbacks to their relationship before, and it's one of those ones where like you don't know what happened, but you know that this big thing happened to kind of like break them up. This one just didn't really feel super special to me, and I didn't really believe our two main characters' chemistry. Fragile Sanctuary is a Catherine Cowles book. I read a lot of Catherine Cowles books last year. They are all interconnected, standalone series on KU, and they're all romantic suspense stories where like the heroine is like in big trouble or like on the run from something, and the hero steps in and like saves her, and then they all end up staying in this like mountain town, and they all blend together after a while. So unfortunately, I don't remember anything about this one. I do enjoy reading them. Obviously, I keep picking them up, so I think this one's another one in Goldfish. Spookily Yours. This one's a really cute little Halloween romance between a demon who's trapped inside the body of a black cat and a witch. Unfortunately, I did feel like it sort of went the like romantasy direction in the second half of the book, and I don't think that part was very successful. It again felt like kind of a watered down romantasy book at that point, and I think it went a little downhill for me, so I'm gonna put it in Blobfish. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't my favorite. The Demon's Bargain. This is one of the books in like a monster romance series, and this one's between a demon and a human woman. I don't remember anything about this one, but I do think I liked it at the time. This is another one of those like interconnected standalone series on KU, and they're fun monster romances. They're super quick to read. They're all like 200 pages, but again, they're not like gonna really stick with you forever, except for the first one. That one I still remember in great detail. Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This one I do think is kind of an unpopular opinion. This one is technically classified as an erotic romance for her, but I have never before read an erotic romance that I felt like had this much character development and romantic development in such a unique and interesting way. I do think I'm going to put this one in Dragon tier. I think it changed the trajectory of my reading in the sense that I'd never read an erotic romance with this much character development, and it was a book that didn't have all of the like flowery, fluffy language that typical romance books have, even some Ali Hazelwood books, but it still felt really effective and swoony, and I think that in the way that the relationship develops just really made sense for these two kind of broken, traumatized characters, and I just think it was done in a really unique and interesting way, and it really stuck with me this year, and I still think about it all the time, so I think it deserves my first Dragon tier. I know people really liked Bride this year, but I think this one deserves more hype than it got. Making a complete 180, The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic really pissed me off this year. This one is going in Mosquito. This one, I was just shocked when I was reading it because I feel like I've seen this one recommended so many times as like a practical magic style cozy fall romance. The romance in this was a terrible, terrible, terrible excuse for a romance. It pissed me off. I think this book tried to do too many things and it did none of them successfully. It also had some weird like preachy Christian vibes, even though it follows like witches, but they don't actually call them witches. I don't know, just not for me. Wow, okay, making another 180. The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young was one of my favorite top God tier reads of the year. This one is the easiest Dragon tier for me. I don't read a lot of like magical realism books or books classified as fiction books, but this is just one of those books I think everyone would like. It did have a subplot of romance and like murder mystery, but the writing and the prose in this book is really what got me. It's so beautiful. It feels like you stepped into like a Hosier song, and it's just so special. I don't want to give too much away for this one because I do think you should go into it blind if you haven't heard anything about this book, but I'm just a huge Adrienne Young fan now, and I will read anything she writes. Her writing is just so beautiful and immersive and atmospheric, and Dragon tier for sure. All I Want Is You by Fallon Ballard. I think this one is going to go in Blobfish for me. This one is another second chance romance. They're both like rival authors who end up snowed in at this like company party, and I don't like the third act conflict in this one. I don't think it was super forgivable. Alive and Wells was another cowboy romance, and it was cute. It didn't like super stand out to me. I think I read some better cowboy romance this year, but I don't remember too much about it. Hexed by Emily McIntyre is part of her Never After dark romance series of like fractured fairy tales, and this one is based off of The Little Mermaid. I think this one was my favorite in the series so far. I think I liked that there wasn't like an icky power dynamic. They were both the villains and they were both equally morally gray, and I think that their relationship was a lot more believable for that reason. I think this one is gonna go in wolf tier for me. I really enjoyed this one. This one was my favorite in the series so far. The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is another like magical realism book with like ghosts. I thought the writing was really pretty in this one. I do think I gave it 5 stars when I read it, but now that I've had more time away from it, I don't think it really stuck with me. I don't really think about it too much. But I still really liked it, so it's gonna go in elephant tier. Play Along by Liz Tomford is part of the Windy City series, and people really loved this book this year. I think they liked that it was like boy falls first and he was just absolutely obsessed with our main female character and really patient with her. She didn't have a lot of experience like physically, and he was just super patient and great with her. But was it super swoony and was I like kicking my feet? No, I don't know. Something was missing for me on this one, and I'm not super sure what it was. I did still really like it though, but I think it's gonna go in Goldfish for me because it wasn't quite like Blobfish where I didn't like it, but it definitely wasn't my favorite in the series. Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt is a romance between a female comedian and her like manager, and I think it was really cute. It didn't live up to savor it for me. I still really enjoyed the writing. It was very humorous. Obviously she's a comedian, but something was like missing with the romance for me, I think, on this one. So I'm gonna put this one in elephant. I still really enjoyed it, but it definitely wasn't like wolf tier. Nocticadia by Carrie Lake is dragon tier for sure. I loved this book so much. It's one of those books that when you pick it up, you're just not going to want to put it down. It is a gothic forbidden romance with like a dark academia setting. It's professor student. There's a really interesting pseudoscience to this one where they're like researching this really creepy disease that killed our main character's mother potentially. And Dr. Death, who is our professor hero, is super morally gray. I loved the vibes on this one. It was my first Carrie Lake book, and I'm currently trying to read more from her backlist because I loved this one so much. But yeah, this was just the perfect gothic vibes for fall. Ice Planet Barbarians, I really liked it when I read it. I thought it was cute, and I read it because I was curious. I wanted to know what all the hype is about. I can't say it really stuck with me. I obviously didn't continue the series, but it was cute. Like, I get why people like it so much. I just didn't feel the need to read like 30 more books of this, but I'm gonna put it in Goldfish because it was cute. I just don't remember too much about it, and I don't feel the need to continue really. Yes, No, Maybe by Jessica Sherry was a recommendation from a mutual friend on the Clock app, and this one was so good. The writing was really good. It's one of those book lover insert novels where our main character is an English teacher and the hero is kind of a down on his luck author, and she kind of becomes his muse, and he starts writing again because he's inspired by her, and she's got like scars from her past, literally. This one was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think I'm gonna put this one in wolf tier because I loved it. I still think about it. It was a surprise because it's not necessarily like a super hyped up book, and I will read more from this author. Quicksilver by Callie Hart I think is also wolf tier for me. This is another Romantasy book, and I picked this one up, and when I did, I was seeing a lot of videos of people saying like, it's cute, but it's nothing special. It's kind of tropey. It follows like that same Romantasy formula. But I disagree. When I read this, I thought the world was really interesting. The magic system was really unique and interesting to me, at least. I hadn't read anything like it. And the romance was paced really well. Quicksilver, one of my favorite Romantasies this year. Loving Romeo by Laura Pavlov. This one is the start of a new series for her. I think the hero is like a boxer and she's like a past friend or something. I really don't remember. I think this one is gonna have to go in Goldfish because I liked it when I read it, but I don't really remember much. The Guest List by Lucy Foley. So I'm not a huge mystery thriller person, but I do like to read them occasionally. And This one was just okay. I'm not really a huge fan of that like Agatha Christie style murder mystery where you get like 20 POVs from different characters and you're trying to figure out who's like telling the truth and who's the culprit. So I think I'm gonna put this one under Blobfish. It definitely wasn't my favorite mystery thriller I read this year. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez is so fantastic. This is on like everyone's favorite books of the year list this year. I think so many people connected to it. And I think Abby Jimenez is really just a dragon tier author for me. Her books just continue to get better. I think the way that she writes her relationships and the emotional connection between characters is just so good. I love her writing, and this book was fantastic. One of the bests of the year for me. Collided by Lauren Asher, I remember nothing about except for the fact that it's like book 2 or 3 in her F1 series. This one's gonna go in Blobfish because again, I couldn't tell you who the characters are in this one. Anathema by Carrie Lake, I really liked. This is more so a fantasy though. Like you're really not going to get to the romance in this one until like the 60% mark and on. And the first 30% of this book kind of takes a while to get into. It's very gruesome. There's a lot of horror in this one. You really aren't going to understand the world until you're like 30% in and you're kind of flipping back and forth to the glossary to figure out like what's going on. So for that reason, I think I'm going to put this in Elephant. I did really enjoy this once you got to the 60% mark, but it did take a bit to get into, so I think I'm going to put it in Elephant. And then you already know, I read One Dark Window last year. It was my favorite book of the year, but I reread it this year because I read Two Twisted Crowns in January. These two are dragon tier for sure, easiest dragon tier. These books are just exactly what I want in a fantasy romance series. I love the gothic vibes. I love the like creepy monster at our main character's head. I thought both of the romances were done really well. I thought the writing was good. I love everything about this series. I cannot wait to read her new book that comes out this year. I'm just the biggest One Dark Window fan. Love it. I will take no criticism on it. Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This is a dark romance, but I don't know that I necessarily call it like a dark romance. I'd more so call it just like a very traumatizing romance. And then their romance is kind of toxic after all of the trauma when they're trying to like work through it and like learn how to live with this trauma. I'm gonna put this one in Elephant because I really liked it, but I don't know if I think it's like my favorite book ever. Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I don't know that I loved this one. I really love Ali Hazelwood in general. She's an auto-buy author for me, but this one is not my favorite of her books. I don't know. I thought it was really cute. I just don't think I loved it as some of her other ones, so I think I'm going to put this one in Elephant. The Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune is definitely my favorite of Carly Fortune's 3 books that are currently out. She writes like summery romances. They're usually like dual timeline. This one is like best friend's brother dual timeline romance. It's not my favorite book ever though. I think I'm gonna put it in Elephant because I did really like it and it's my favorite of her books. And I think I gave it 5 stars at the time, but it's another one where like after some time has passed, I really just don't think about it. The Hotel Nantucket. This is my first Ellen Hilderbrand book. I wasn't sure what to expect from it, but I did have a really good time reading this one. It definitely still stuck with me, so it's higher than Goldfish. I think I'm going to put this one in Elephant as well because I can't say it's like one of my favorite books or that I loved it, but I did really enjoy it and I had a good time listening to the audiobook on this one. It's one of those ones where you're following multiple characters who all work at this like fancy Nantucket hotel and they've all got like different things going on. I think it's a good like beach read, which is what her books are. Twisted by Emily McIntyre is another of the Never After dark romance fractured fairy tale series. This one's the Aladdin one, I think. And to be completely honest with you, I don't remember anything about this one. So this one's gonna go in Goldfish. Catching Feelings. This one is unfortunately a Mosquito one for me. It's one that I picked up on a whim at Target and I saw it was like a cute baseball romance and I like baseball. I just really hated the main character in this one. I think she was awful. I did not like the romance. I don't think it was believable. I really didn't like anything about this one, unfortunately. Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This one is probably, I I think I'm gonna put this one in elephant tier. This is a dark romance series. I only read the first book in the series, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure I get it just yet. I'll give it a couple more books and really decide, but I'm gonna put it in elephant. I like it, I think. Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. This one has such a cute, fun, like springy cover. But this one's just really not what I was expecting it to be. I, to be honest, didn't really love this one. It felt more like women's fiction than it did a romance to me, and the romance I was not convinced of. I think I'm going to put this one in Blobfish because it focused a lot more on like the pregnancy aspect, and I also think Shepherd, our MMC, deserved a lot better. In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware was a mystery thriller recommendation from one of my friends this year. Shout out to Heather. This was my favorite mystery thriller I read this year. I didn't read a lot, but out of the ones I did read, this one's definitely my favorite. I think I'm going to put this one in elephant tier. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. So many of us have very complicated feelings over this book, just with everything going on in the news right now, and then how the press played out for the movie, and just in general how the movie went. The book I didn't think was that bad, to be honest. I'm gonna put this one in elephant as well. I actually liked it. A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft was probably one of my biggest letdowns this year. I had such high hopes for this book. This is a sapphic dark academia fantasy romance, and it was just boring is what it came down to. It felt like not a lot happened. The like fantasy world and the folklore aspect of this was really interesting, but it was a little bit boring, and it took me like several weeks to get through. So I think I'm going to put this one in Blobfish, unfortunately. Luna and the Lie by Mariana Zapata. Is this my favorite Mariana Zapata book? No, but I still really enjoyed it. All of her books are extremely slow burn, and honestly a little bit Stockholm syndrome for how long they are, but I remember pretty much everything about this book, and I really liked it. I think I'm probably going to put it in elephant tier. I think I had a few problems with it now that I'm remembering, but I still enjoyed it. The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year I read on audio, and I think it was a really good audiobook experience, and one of my favorite Christmas romances I read this year. I think I'm gonna put this one in Wolf, honestly. It was a 5-star Christmas romance for me, which is hard to do. Ashes of You by Catherine Cowles is another one of her like typical romantic suspense interconnected standalone series. I don't remember anything about this. In fact, I'm not even really sure if this is the start of a new series or if it was its own series. So I'm gonna put it in Goldfish. I do think I always enjoy her books, like I said earlier, but I don't remember anything about this one. Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This is the Adrienne Young book I was most excited to read because I've heard really, really great things about this, and that it's a really great atmospheric fall book. And while it is, I still really love her writing and like the atmosphere. I don't think that this was my favorite of her books. I still really enjoyed it though, but I think I'm gonna put this one in elephant because I think the ending was a little bit of a letdown for me. I was really loving the book up until like the last 20%, and then it really went downhill for me. Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is one so many people loved this year, and I really loved it too. The hero is kind of based off of Danny Phantom. He is a phantom, and it's kind of like Caravel, except for you're stuck in this like creepy haunted mansion with trials, and it's so much fun. I think I'm gonna put this one in Wolf tier because it was just a really, really great fall romantasy read. King by T.M. Frazier. This one is definitely a Mosquito book. This was 1 star. I don't have words for how bad this book was. It's not even legal, to be honest. I don't think I'm gonna talk anymore about this one. My December Darling by Lauren Asher was her Christmas romance novella that came out this year, but it was really long for a novella. It was like 300 something pages. And do I remember any of it? No, I do not. I remember being really bored with this one though, so I think it's going in Blobfish for me. Crossed is the last Never After book on my list this year. This one I think was based off of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This is a forbidden dark romance, and it's probably my least favorite in the series. This one is gonna go in Blobfish because I think there were parts of it I liked, but most of it wasn't my favorite. Mingle All the Way is the last one of the like fake dating Christmas romances I read, and this one was also pretty forgettable for me. I think it was cute, but there was really nothing special about it or nothing memorable, and I could have gone without reading it. So putting this one in Goldfish. Actually, sorry, putting this one in Blobfish. Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher was, I think, the second book in her newest series, and I don't remember anything about this one. I remember thinking it was cute, but I'm putting this one in Goldfish because I genuinely can't even tell you anything about this one. Okay, Tame the Heart by Ava Hunter was another one of those cowboy romances where the heroine is hiding out on the ranch, and I think I actually got this one confused with another one up here, this Alive and Wells. Yeah, so this is the one where she has like a heart condition. And so for that reason, because I got them confused, I think I'm moving them both down. Or no, actually, Alive and Wells can stay in Goldfish because I forgot that one. But also Tame the Heart is going to go into Goldfish as well because I don't know what it's about. Impractical Magic by Emily Grimore was an ARC that I received this year. This one is a fall fantasy romance where like the town loses magic. I had some pretty big issues with this one thematically, so I think I'm putting this one in Mosquito, unfortunately. I don't think the writing was very good. I think the humor was a little bit lost on me, and I didn't enjoy how the plot played out. If It Makes You Happy, on the other hand, is a fall romance that I really, really enjoyed this year. This one was a big surprise for me, and I loved this one so much. It was cozy, it was nostalgic, set in the 90s. It goes through all the holidays. One of my biggest surprises this year, I'm putting this one in Wolf. Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan is a sports romance, but I wouldn't really classify it as a sports romance. It's more so like a very traumatic romance. It deals with a lot of really heavy topics. Definitely look up trigger warnings for this one, but I'm a huge fan of Kennedy Ryan's writing, and while it doesn't shy away from the themes in this book, I think it handles them with grace, and I'm going to put this one in Wolf, I think. And lastly, Snowed In by Nevessa Allen. This one was a Christmas romance that I think tried to take on a little too much, in my opinion. I think it was trying to deal with a lot of really heavy topics at once. I still enjoyed the story, so I think I'm going to put this one in Goldfish. But there you have it, guys. Those are my rankings. As you can tell, most of them ended up in Goldfish, like I predicted, but I did have quite a few more elephant and wolf tier books than I thought, and those are my dragon tier. Well, those are my rankings for all of the 122 books I read this year. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and leave me a comment with your favorite books that you read this year. Thanks, guys. Bye!